Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show on a night where we have a potential severe weather threat, although I think we need to have a conversation about that. And of course, you can see rather, I don't know, questioning look by Mrs. Bundy as JJ is in his usual position during showtime, fast asleep.
Huh.
The Joe and Joe Weather Show is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon. A good place to go just in case you need to freshen up your supplies when it comes to dealing with adverse weather, because they have it all there. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue, 6317-561-1125 in West Babylon, New York on Long Island. And the website is omnitruevalue.com, and brought to you by Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini. We're one day closer to the holidays. Your complete holiday lighting specialist, meeting all your decorating needs, whether you want to make your house look like um, Chevy Chase's house in, I believe it was Christmas Vacation, or perhaps you want to make this part of your own business and decorate other people's houses. They're at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, New York, also on Long Island. 631-957-5106 is the telephone number, and the website is liholidaylighting.com. So let me put the camera back so you can see me.
Is Omni going to be opening on Friday morning at 3 a.m. like they do in place of snowstorms?
That I
Which we're
don't know.
anticipating.
That's a good question. I don't know. I haven't been told that they are. So, but if I will inquire. And why can I not get this camera to load? There we go.
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm just having one of those nights tonight. I think I'm having the kind of night that the forecaster over at the Storm Prediction Center was having today. And I say this not in a mean sort of way, but they put up a watch box, and I think, given the circumstances in terms of what was going on aloft, and of course after what happened yesterday, that the watch box was certainly justified. Except that when we take a look at it in just a little bit, you're going to notice that, except maybe on the northernmost fringe of the watch box, there were severe thunderstorms all around the watch box. But in the watch box itself, there's little or nothing going on, at least as of 7:30 Eastern time. And of course,
Well,
we've got Elsa to talk about too.
we still have a 3 hours, 3.5 hours to go, and we'll see how this all pans out. I personally, Joe, didn't think that we were going to get anything until later this evening. I'd say around 10 o'clock or so.
Well,
So
that
we'll
seems
see
to
how things.
that seems to be the case, considering what's on the radar and where it's coming from. That, yeah, maybe it may be more like 9, 10, or 11 o'clock, depending on where you are.
Have to wait for it to simmer or boil, so to speak. So we'll see what happens. And yes, the future antics of Elsa, which is really confounding and confusing. I think the folks over at the National Hurricane Center trying to figure out where it's going to go and how strong it's going to be. Tonight on the CBS Evening News, Major Garrett, who is filling in for the lovely, um, uh, uh, oh, good.
Nora,
now you see, now you see what happens here, folks. I always say
if
the
you can't
mind is the
remember
first
her
thing to
name,
go.
if you can't remember her
I
name,
can't even remember.
there's a consultant out there. There's a
Nora
consultant out there that's a
Nora
Nora
O'Donnell.
O'Donnell. Yes.
Yeah, Nora O'Donnell. So I remember, Major Garrett. How many of you have ever named your son Major? You know,
And my daughter worked with Major
um,
Garrett.
but he led off the news tonight, the national CBS News, by saying the storm is going to move along the eastern seaboard and is expected to get stronger as it approaches New York. And you see that, and immediately if you live in the New York area, you immediately are thinking about Irene. You're probably thinking about Sandy. You're probably thinking about Donna or Bell or any of the other storms that did a number on us by hearing that and scaring, I guess, most of the population who was watching the news this evening, giving the impression that we were going to be in line for something along those lines of a severe meteorological hemorrhage, so to speak, on Thursday night, Friday morning.
One of the frustrating parts of this, and it's always been for me, is my attempt to just basically stay on message and stay on point when it comes to this sort of stuff. And unfortunately, and of course, much not only does this have to do with the antics that are going on in other media with this sort of thing, but also let's remember the tendency for the average consumer of this news to forecast shop. So I'm just going to ask a simple question. You and I were sort of on the same page last night with regards to what's going to happen with Elsa. Do we remain on that page, or are we going to a different chapter?
No, I think I said last night that the storm would bring a bit of rain to our area and even a bit of wind to our area, but nothing to compare with, let's say, last year with Itzaia, nothing to compare with some of the storms that have really, as I mentioned a few moments ago, done a number on us, like Irene with 12 inches of rain, or Sandy with storm conditions that were unprecedented in the modern history of mankind, or in the modern history of the New York City area. We're going to get some weather out of this, but it's not going to be anything that I don't think we're going to be too overly concerned with once the storm moves on past. And your favorite your favorite forecaster at the Hurricane Center, Joe Pash.
Yeah, I think he must have missed the 4:55 bus, because the stuff didn't come out until about 4:59. So
well, he wrote another relatively short, by the standards of technical discussions, a short technical discussion. And he said it is dubious as to whether Elsa will be completely tropical in 48 hours due to the uncertainty as to when extratropical transition will occur. We will post tropical storm watches for Long Island and portions of southern New England at this time. In other words, the heck, let's cover our you-know-what by simply putting up watches, tropical storm watches, and see what happens.
he does have a point with what he says in terms of, and I know it's their job to just sort of to get into the technicals of it all. But the problem is trying to translate those technicals to the folks at home who, maybe do not quite understand the whole process. And of course, when we're in the middle of a system that's, basically transitioning over from a tropical to a post-tropical system, it kind of changes what the outcome could be depending on your location. And we're in a situation here in terms of the vast, majority of the area that we talk about. There's going to be different things going on in different places. It's conceivable, for example, that central and eastern Long Island could be to the east of the center. And the rain will at that point have kind of curled back over to the west side of the low. The wind may be more of a factor going east, less of a factor going west in part of that transition. So I did tonight on my website post, I just broke it down to what to expect in New Jersey, what to expect on Long Island, what to expect in the Hudson Valley, what to expect in southern Connecticut, because each one, there's a nuance to each one in terms of the different forecasts, the different elements that are going to be occurring, and in terms of the timing. But the bottom line is, I think, this is going to should be manageable. The European last night had a 989 low near Sandy Hook. And when I saw that, I thought, if that ever verified, then it would be a really big problem, because then we would probably see a short period of winds of 40 to 50 miles an hour with the low moving up. But that just seemed way overdone. None of the other models were anywhere close to that. And the European actually pulled back a bit in terms of the intensity. I guess the one nagging question for me in all of this is that and I'll bring up the satellite loop here with regards to that nagging question, is this upper trough. And when we look at the loop, you're gonna see three things going on here. You're going to, of course, see Well, that wasn't supposed to happen. Sorry about that. Hang on, folks. I just clicked the button a little too quickly. Here we go. So here we now. Let me show the three factors. Of course, we're talking about Elsa, which is right there. Still has that cyclone signature to it now that it's moved inland. You've got the severe weather and thunderstorms that are going on mostly to the north. And back in here, this is the upper trough that's beginning to drop in and swing around. And I think that's the one nagging question I have in all of this. And the models all seem to indicate that that trough is not going to have a huge impact on this. It's not going to come down and energize it and cause it to strengthen. I know the earlier discussions were talking about the possibility that once it moved off the Virginia coast, maybe there'll be some what we call baroclinicity. A little bit of the best way to describe that is just the way non-tropical storms intensify. The upper trough will energize this and cause the pressures to fall. I'm not so sure that that's going to happen with this. So there's some big questions in my mind in terms of the actual strength of that upper trough, and I think that's a variable I just want to keep open in the back of my mind in case something really screwy happens at the last minute.
Well, I looked at the path of the storm last night and this morning, the projected path, and I've come up with a listing. I've looked at 60 or 70 years worth of tropical data, and came up with six storms where the path somewhat resembled what we're seeing projected for Elsa.
Well, you have screen sharing capabilities if you want.
Well, I don't have these specifically available. I mean, maybe I'll show one or two, but I have one that was relatively recent, and in fact, I even posted on my Facebook page a few days ago because it coincided with the Independence Day 4th of July weekend, was Hurricane Arthur. Arthur was in 2014, and that brought, again, a bit of wind and rain to parts of our viewing area. There was a storm, Tropical Storm Beryl, July 19, 2006. Then there was Josephine. That was back in 1996 in October the 9th. There was one that was a historic near miss, 125 mile per hour winds, grazing the region around Cape Cod and Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard. Hurricane Gerda back in September of 1969. And then there was Cindy in 1959, Edna in 1954. And again, these storms may be noteworthy in one way, shape, or form, but they did not, I repeat, they did not, cause any, major problems in and around the New York City metropolitan area. Certainly, if you mention Sandy, everybody says, oh, yeah, well, of course, we remember Sandy, or Irene, or Gloria back in 1985. But all of these storms I just mentioned, they came, they went, they brought a bit of rain, a bit of gusty wind, and that was pretty much that. So I'm thinking that along those lines of, looking at the past, Joe, looking at storms like this, and seeing where Elsa's projected to go. That's what I'm saying right now. Is we're going to be in for some showery weather, a bit of a breeze, some windy weather. But I mean, if you're thinking about hundreds of thousands of people thrown in the dark, power outages, or beach erosion, or 5 inches of rain, or that kind of thing, I don't think that's going to be the story. First of all, I think it's moving too fast. I mean,
it's 6 to 8 hours. It's 6 to 8 hours from start to.
I mean, they've got it down near Cape May at 2 a.m. on Friday morning, and already by 2 p.m. on Friday afternoon. That's 12 hours later, they've got the storm already passing Cape Cod. That's really fast. So, as you just mentioned, it's going to, whatever it does, it's going to be lasting for, several hours or maybe a little more than that. And then pretty much, I wouldn't be surprised if Friday afternoon the sun was out.
Yeah.
And that's, in the aftermath of the storm.
Well,
so we'll see what happens.
I put up WPC's forecast rainfall mapping, and again, also let's bear in mind too that in terms of the size of this is not a big system. It's fairly small, compact. So you see this narrow band and the darker green of that's the 2 to 4 inch rain band. It's kind of uneven as it runs from southeastern Georgia, where it's raining now, and I actually had some renegade stuff that's running on the northern periphery of the circulation. Just went through here with some heavy rains, and I have a temperature, Joe, that dropped to 69 and didn't even get out of the 70s today. But you can see that rain, the 2 to 4 inch band, kind of uneven, running through southeastern Virginia, the Delmarva Peninsula, through New Jersey. The dark green is 2 to 4. I probably think it'll be closer to the 2 than the 4. And then, of course, you
Right.
see the 2 to 4 inch rains up in New England. So that's their
Yeah,
particular.
you took the words right out of my mouth. By the way, saying that, as you can see in the dark green, that's the 2 to 4 zone. But changing your language a little bit in a different tone, I would put the emphasis more on the 2 as opposed to the 4.
Right.
I really don't see 4 or 5 inches coming out of this, again, because of the speed of the system.
Yeah, and they also have in that whole zone, by the way, a slight risk of flash flood issues. I suppose if somebody gets 2 inches of rain in 6 hours, there is going to be some potential for some localized flooding. So, but this is not was something that I would regard as extraordinary. This is not Isaias from last year where we had the low going up inland of the coast and interacting with a deep upper trough, much deeper upper trough than what we have now in the Great Lakes that caused the system to strengthen like a non-tropical storm. And we had about 6 hours of 50 to 70 mile an hour sustained winds and even some gusts higher than that. So it is a whole different ball game. I just want to emphasize that overall, barring a last minute surprise, if that upper trough were to energize this somehow, it could change things for some areas, but that's a long shot chance. It's something I'm not really forecasting. Now I saved this from earlier. This was the Hurricane Center's forecast this morning of the track, and the cone is the blue lines would represent what you would normally see as the cone, and it's very tough with these forecasts because they're giving you a range here of what time quote unquote gales will arrive, but the probability of those gales being north and west of the center are not that high. I mean, unless you're really, really close to the low, there's not going to be that much. But more importantly, I just want to kind of focus on the track here, which had it in the southern part of the Delmarva Peninsula and then moving northeastward, passing east of just east of Montauk, and looks like near Nantucket, Hyannis, over into southeastern Rhode Island by around. Well, this was I think that was for like 1 p.m. if I remember correctly. So on the new run, which I will give this a refresh. I'll just give me a minute to load and fix up the map. I kind of like these interactive maps because when you look at the forecast map, maps now, it's a very, very wide geography. So you're looking at something like this, and oftentimes you look at the track and you're like, well, where is it? Okay, so here's a tighter view, and we'll put the track on there on the new forecast, and it's kind of nudged a little bit to the northwest. They've been kind of tucking it in a little bit further to the northwest. The global models continue to be north and west of where the hurricane tracking models are. The hurricane tracking models are very tightly packed near where the Hurricane Center's got their forecast. But the global models continue to want to kind of pin this up a little bit more to the northwest. It's just a handful of miles, but it may make a small difference for somebody. But I can't really argue against this type of forecast with this sort of track. And by the way, if this track does verify and we don't get any kind of a surprise where the storm is a little more intense because of that upper trough, again, I go back to what you and I both said. This is going to be manageable.
Yes. It's again. I feel that Major Garrett is an excellent news anchor. He knows his stuff, especially in politics. But I guess what he was told by an executive producer
read
at
the
the top
script.
of the news was
Read the
Make sure
script.
the script. Make sure you read it in such a manner so that you keep or hold your viewers. And so all you have to do is just simply say, "We're watching Hurricane Elsa. It may strengthen on its way to New York." That's all you have to do to hold your audience and to get people to, stay and tune in. And that's certainly enough, I think, to get them to do that. Although really, it's the type of a headline that is a little bit over the top, at least for
Right.
me.
Maximum sustained winds are still 45 miles an hour on the 8 o'clock advisory. Part of the circulation is over the water. It's off this over the southeast coast, southwest Atlantic. So weakening is going to be slow, and this still could wind up being may weaken to a depression, but there still might be some gust to gale force along the coast, which is one of the reasons why they have the tropical storm watches up for North Carolina. And then emerging as a tropical storm again. Is there going to be some of that what we call baroclinic deepening that goes on? So that's the logic behind the Hurricane Center forecast. So from 2 a.m. it's in southern Delaware. At 2 p.m. it's at Cape Cod. So that means that if you split the difference, it passes near or just east of New York City around 8 a.m. And as you pointed out, once it goes by, weather conditions are going to improve rather quickly.
Yes, and as I said, it would not be at all surprising if tomorrow afternoon the sun put in an appearance. Friday afternoon the sun put in an appearance. Friday afternoon, and but actually, you know what? The atmosphere may still have enough moisture, and there may be just enough instability. So, if the sun does come out Friday afternoon, we might see it boil up a couple of showers, or maybe even a couple of late day storms.
Yeah,
So,
I put them
we
in.
may start the day. We may start off the day with showery rains, which will go then to a bit of sunshine for the midday and early afternoon. And then we finish out the day with a couple of boom booms or a couple of hard showers here and there. There'll be that kind of a day on Friday.
Yeah. Johnny Cuesta is asking about the clouds that are in the western Gulf of Mexico, if that's tropical. Actually, if you look closely, you'll see there's a rotation here. That's an upper low. That is the upper low, the bottom of the trough that was in the eastern part of the United States, separated and dropped into the western Gulf and opened the alleyway for Elsa to move northward up the west side of the west coast of Florida. So that upper low is on land. Sometimes you get these upper lows when they are out over the open waters of the Gulf, that over a series of several days or more, that they could slowly warm and become a tropical system. But as long as that upper low remains well inland, the center of the upper low well inland, it's not likely to do that. And Bill Rogers was asking, how come some troughs kick things along and how come others don't? Well, in this particular instance, if you look, you see the trough over the Great Lakes. Take a look back in the northwestern part of the United States. There's another one right behind it. So it's one is kicking the other. So sometimes you have a flow like this that we refer to as being progressive. Everything progresses. It's not a political term here. It's a describing the motion moving from west to east. So in this progressive pattern, that trough can't really dive down or hang around because there's one right behind it. So what you're left with then is the timing of that trough with the position of the tropical system. If they time out together, you wind up with something like this where it moves up the eastern seaboard. Suppose that trough were further west, we would have a different outcome. Maybe Elsa would be further going more inland and north and west before turning north. If the trough were already further along and further east, Elsa would probably make a sharp right turn in North Carolina and then head east-northeast out to sea. So when you have a progressive pattern where systems are moving west to east like this, it's got to time out perfectly. The one thing I will say, by the way, is that, and I've said this on and off for the last couple of weeks, the persistence of these troughs in the eastern United States, if this continues, then get ready for multiple chances for tropical systems to move up the East Coast if we keep getting these troughs dropping into the eastern part of the United States. I don't think that's a controversial statement. I think that actually is, pretty much stating the obvious.
No, that's absolutely true. And the one thing that I noticed about Elsa that a lot of the stronger systems of historic nature that affected the New York area, the one thing that Elsa lacks is any real energy, any real punch. There is nothing on the F-Gen map of any significant punch of Omega, which it's quite the difference between this storm and Itza-Ia last year. Last year, I mentioned this last night, between about noon and 3 o'clock in the afternoon during the day that Itza-Ia came through the tri-state area, there was a thick clustering. I mean, you almost couldn't tell one contour line from another apart that just rammed right through here during a 3-hour interval. And that energy, that made all the difference. That was the result of why we had the tremendous wind gusts and why we had the tremendous rains. I mean, that's what made Itza-Ia a memorable storm. I don't see any of that with Elsa. That's why with Elsa, all I'm thinking of is that it's going to be a bit of rain, some gusty breezes, and that's about it. And it does not look like any fierce storm. And as I've said so many times before, Joe, sometimes if these systems didn't have if Elsa didn't have a name, then all we'd be talking about is potential.
It'd be almost like a little frontal wave.
Yeah, exactly. Once they get a name, that changes the whole, at least in the news media's mind. Oh, it's got what is it? It's Elsa. It's Congolia. It's Bud. Then
I know.
And then it goes into a whole different category of fierce.
By the way, storm. I put up the 700 millibar F-Gen map for you, so you could. The only F-Gen is that little tongue that touches coastal New Jersey for a brief time at 5 in the morning and extends out into the open waters of the Atlantic. That is, if you want to describe this in words, I think the 2 words that come to mind are not impressive. Okay.
Right.
And then that just kind of skedaddles along. It moves east and then north. Actually gets as a little bit of F-Gen of a more serious nature when it gets over Cape Cod for a brief time, and then that moves out. But yeah, the upper. In fact, I'm kind of looking at this and just sort of seeing at the loop. You see the energy in the Great Lakes dropping down with that upper trough, and it never seems to get together. That trough almost stays separate, completely separate from. It lifts it up, but it doesn't. It doesn't get close enough where you get where it can energize it, and I think that's what the models are telling us here.
Yeah, and I think that the overview of things over the next, you're talking about the way the troughs are going to align for the next few weeks, Joe. The way I'm seeing it, we've got a long stretch now of above normal temperatures. I mean, we're talking about warm to occasionally hot. Hopefully nothing like what we had last week when we saw those temperatures climb into the upper 90s, and yes, Newark, if you want to believe it, low hundreds. I'm not talking about that kind of situation, but what I am thinking is that we're going to be seeing a long stretch of above normal temperatures, which may pretty well last right on through into maybe the final days of July. So July looks like it's going to turn out to be a rather warm month.
Take a look at this NAM. This is for 11 o'clock tonight. Look how small the area of rain is with this low. I mean, it really, what is that? Maybe 120 miles wide at most. That is what's left of the core of Elsa. You start to see the rain area fan out a bit during the day on Thursday, which makes sense because now you have the cold front to the west and the upper trough to the west starting to enhance some of the rainfall. But if you didn't know any better, if you didn't know that there was a tropical storm, that we were talking about a tropical storm, and you looked at this map for tomorrow evening, you barely can find it. There's a little closed low there in eastern North Carolina, and then as it moves off the coast Thursday night, this is at 2 a.m. Thursday, there's the low center, 1,007 millibars. Okay, and that's about all I can say about that. Sitting just right along the Delaware coast, passes east of Atlantic City, south of Long Island. At least from the world that the NAM lives in, it actually keeps the bulk of the rain in a very tight spiral just offshore, clipping Long Island. Cape Cod, southeastern New England, gets into about a 6-hour period of heavy rain and gusty winds because the low's tightening up a little bit when it gets up there. And then, of course, it's already at that point now we're talking about something extra tropical. If we want to take a look just at the GFS, actually not that different than the European. The only thing the GFS does do is that it shows a much more impressive area of rain with this, starting from tonight. Again, kind of on the smallish side, but it does start to fan out that rain through North Carolina into Virginia. Now you've got frontal showers and some thunderstorms going on in Pennsylvania and upstate New York. And then rain comes in tomorrow night. You get some heavier rain during the overnight. By Friday morning, 8 a.m., the low is just southeast of Kennedy Airport in the ocean. But it's not tight. Not a whole lot of isobars with this. And then it just sort of moves away to the northeast. If this were if this were under 1,000 millibars, if it was a 999 or a 998 or 997 low, you get the point. I'd be more concerned with respect to the wind. But if you're talking of something that's about 1,008 millibars, it's hard to imagine that you're going to get a whole lot of wind out of this.
And the other thing, and I'm again, I have to be sensitive here because we are talking about a very, very sad situation, the collapse of that apartment complex down in South Florida. But for days, they kept talking about Elsa's approach and how Elsa would seriously impede the progress of digging through the debris. And they're watching and keeping an eye on Elsa. They keep an eye on Elsa. Well, Elsa passed. Elsa's now beyond that area, and yet we have nothing. There have been no media coverage in the aftermath saying what exactly did Elsa do? Did it really cause any major problems in trying to clear away that debris or trying to rescue possible survivors underneath all of that rubble? They played it up big time. Elsa's coming. Elsa's coming. Elsa. Elsa came by.
Marsha.
And it almost seems now like, all right, well, it didn't do what we thought it might do down there, so let's now move forward and see what it'll do to the Carolinas and eventually to the New York area, whatever. It just blows my mind, Joe, that they being the mainstream media just loves to play up and accentuate the potential of disaster as opposed to what a storm might actually do. I have heard nothing about this storm looks somewhat similar to this storm, and that storm didn't give, really all that much in terms of a problem. But it just, every storm is a potential disaster, it seems to me. So we'll see what happens. But I really, I'm with you in this. I'm in your camp. I think, Elsa's going to come, it's going to pass on through, and then it's going to go, and we're going to resume our lives.
That's correct. The Again, to illustrate again, the upper trough right here in the Great Lakes. Here's the representation of Elsa. Now, if we were to see something like this with the upper trough going negative and picking Elsa up, then we would be talking about something far more serious. But watch what happens here. The troughs never really phase. The southern extent of it, there's the representation of Elsa. The northern trough is just kind of mush. There's the short waves that I outlined there are weak, relatively speaking, and they kind of hang around. They not only are weak, but they actually just sort of sit there up in the Great Lakes. And here we are Friday morning. There's Elsa. Here's the upper trough to the west. Its function is to drag it up the East Coast, which it's doing, but it's not going to be able to do much else. Given the fact that it's just not that strong. And then, of course, that upper trough swings eastward so that we get some maybe showers or thunderstorms late Friday or to Friday night, as Joe indicated earlier. And then we go into what looks like a warm and humid weekend. Here's another trough, Joe, with an upper low cutting off over the Great Lakes on Sunday and a big upper high building off the East Coast. for Sunday and early next week. We're going to be in a Atlantic ridge position here. It's 597 plus high sitting off the mid-Atlantic coast come Monday and Tuesday. That certainly means that we should be very warm, certainly be very warm and very humid. And maybe as that Great Lakes trough finally lifts out to the northeast, at some point, maybe it'll trigger off a couple of thunderstorms. So we'll be going into, back into summer mode when we get into next week.
Yes, yes, and as I just noted, it looks to me, at least I'm looking at the GFS long range, but if you take that at face value, if you're hoping for another one of those beautiful, dry, clear air masses coming down from Canada, a midsummer night's dream, so to speak, it doesn't look like it's going to be coming anytime soon.
All of next week looks very warm and humid. I mean,
yes,
just very warm to borderline hot and humid. So if you have next week off, you'll be in pretty good shape. All right, let's go to the radars and take a look at the what's going on with respect to the severe weather threat where the severe thunderstorm watch continues, and there's a big gaping hole when you look at the radar. Here's the watch box. Let me pull up that watch box if I can find it. Okay, so here it is. So this is the watch box with the counties. Okay, so there's your watch box. Now, the northern part of the watch box did get some severe weather during the late afternoon and evening, but on the whole, when you look at the watch box and then we go to the radar, inside the bulk of the watch box, there's very little activity going on. We do have some severe weather tonight in eastern Massachusetts. Looks like a severe thunderstorm and special marine warning in and around the Boston area. There's also a special marine warning that was just issued for the coastal waters east of Montauk and Greenport, and also off the coast of southwestern Rhode Island, and a severe thunderstorm warning in southeastern Connecticut. There's some cells moving just south of I-90 in upstate New York. And then we've got some strong cells that produce some severe thunderstorm warnings in central Pennsylvania. Those are moving eastward. Joe, that might be your 10 or 11 o'clock chances for some showers and storms, that area there as it moves on up to the east-northeast.
Yes. In fact, if since we do have sharing capabilities, why don't I check out, see if I can get the RPM up. Although, no, we don't have the 0Z. The best I can give you is the 18Z RPM, or maybe the 21Z.
You have the 18Z European.
That's true, but I'd like to, animate it so we can see what the RPM is showing in terms of. Well, I haven't even brought that up yet, so let me do that. Continue talking for a few moments while I get the graphic that I want to show up here on the screen.
Okay. You're on a single shot here. Let me get you back to a double. There we go. We'll get us back to a double.
Single, double, triple, home run.
And let me get us back up. Hang on one second.
I just want to. Come on.
There we go. Oops. I'm going to watch you suffer. By the way,
all right, now I've got
it. All right. I was going to show everybody what JJ's doing, but he's doing what he was doing at the beginning of the show.
Snoozing.
Yes.
So let's see. I've got this, and I've got that. And so, ladies and gentlemen, let's show you the Northeast here. Let's take a look at the loop.
Well, there are your storms.
Right. So that is 5:30Z. That's actually 1:30 in the morning, if you want to believe this.
Well, get ready to get woken up, Mr. Rayo. if that's the case.
Yeah.
Well, roll back a little bit. Since it's 8 o'clock, roll back to 10 o'clock this evening. What's it supposed to look like at 10 o'clock?
10 o'clock, there you go.
That's 1 a.m. right? Hour of,
It's
O2Z. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. So that's at 10 o'clock.
yes.
Now go back 2 more hours to 8 o'clock.
You're right. So then we go to 0Z. There you go.
Okay,
Now, does your
so
radar match up with that, or is it all a fallacy
let's
here on the?
let's see. It's not too far off. It's not too far off. It's got all this stuff in Connecticut. There's a cell in southeastern Connecticut, and there's a couple of cells up in southwestern Massachusetts, just touching northwest Connecticut. But the stuff it has over central and eastern and western Connecticut back to just north of New York City, that darker green. There's nothing there on the radar. It's not a bad match, but it's far from perfect.
Why don't I just loop it now, and let's take a look and see what the what this is all going to say concerning Elsa. Now, right now we're at about midday tomorrow, and Elsa, you can see Elsa there coming up from the bottom of your screen. I'm going to stop it right about here. So this would be 12Z on Friday. So this is 8 a.m. on Friday, and as you can see, according to this, Long Island is getting hammered, and portions of northern and eastern New Jersey are getting hammered pretty well. But then, very quickly, it spirals up through Connecticut, up into New England, and pretty much it's all gone and done by about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Although there's more stuff now that's popping later in the day, and then we have kind of a backlash effect for the end of the afternoon and early evening on Friday.
That's the cold front finally pushing by. Roll back to about midnight again. So, the folks that are watching in South Jersey, Southern Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Maryland can see, and Virginia can see what's going on here. So we're changing the physics of the atmosphere and just moving weather systems backwards. But here we go.
This is midnight.
So you can see it there over Chesapeake Bay, the Delmarva Peninsula. You're getting some rain in southern New Jersey, extreme southeastern PA. It cuts off just north and west of there. All right, so just roll it by hour. So we're at midnight.
That's 1 a.m. So this is 1 a.m. This is 2 a.m. Here's 3 a.m. That's interesting. 3 a.m. There's something trying to creep into the lower Hudson Valley.
Right.
4 a.m. Look at this now. Look at all that red over my house, Joe.
Yeah, there's an arm that comes up, and then there's another band that's kind of spiraling around what is the low center, which probably is just east of Cape May at this point.
So that's 4 a.m. Here's 5 a.m., 6 a.m., and look right here. I guess
near Atlantic City.
See, that's where it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right there, right there. That's 6 a.m. Here's 7 a.m., 8 a.m. We just saw that a few moments ago. 9 a.m. Now the system is beginning to pull off to the north and east. 10 a.m.
and
10:30.
Now it's
11 o'clock.
Now it's southern and southeastern New England. And
right.
Wherever that convection is, if that's real, you'll probably get some decent wind gusts in those bands when they come up if that convection is real. They'll be short-lived because once the convection passes, then you'll see the winds drop off. So I'm staying with what we've said from the onset. Showing a little bit of maybe a little bit of energy. Getting a shot of energy from that upper trough, but not a lot, and not enough to make any kind of big difference with respect to the outcome. And I'm just going to bring the radar back up again. Let's go to that shot so we can show folks what's going on elsewhere. So here's Elsa. Now, of course, inland in southern Georgia, you can see the rains there in southeastern Georgia. I'm in northeast Georgia, so you see that the band that's near the border of Tennessee, that went through me between 6 p.m. and just about the showtime start, and that's moving northwestward. There have been showers and downpours back through Alabama, and then swinging eastward. Also, part of that upper low And Johnny Quest, you could see the rotation here, that upper low in South Texas, bringing in heavy showers and storms into the coastal bend. Uh, but again, the upper low is inland, and we've got also some showers and storms in the Great Lakes, in and around the Great Lakes, and you see the activity that's up in northwestern PA and back over Lake Erie, and we've got some showers and storms going on across the state of Montana and Wyoming. So a little bit of activity up there in the northern Rockies. WPC's rainfall for the next 7 days, and I think we can safely say that what we're seeing in the east, given the big upper high that's going to start building over the weekend, is front end loaded here, and they've got that 2 to 3 inch rain band from southern New Jersey and back over to northern Delaware up into New England. I think that's reasonable. Also some heavy rains in parts of central Illinois, western Indiana, and northwest Missouri. You can see that patch of 3 to 6 inch or more rainfalls in coastal Texas on the coastal bend. And the west coast of the United States is bone dry. So we got one more day to take a look at this with respect to at this time tomorrow. We should have it all pretty much, wrapped up in whatever variables are left hanging right at the moment. We should be able to resolve those issues, and say with a good amount of confidence, and hopefully we won't have to adjust our forecast from what we're saying right now.
Now you told me off air a few days ago that if we ever got into this type of a situation, that there might be the possibility of us getting a special guest on. Do you think that is
I actually asked said special guest to maybe come on tonight, but he wasn't ready. So I'm
okay.
I told him whenever he wants, just let me know. I was hoping we'd have him on too, but who knows? Maybe tomorrow.
Might be. Maybe he'll be as outraged as you and I are with the way that the media is playing this up to be the next Sandy or the next Irene.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's do a little bit of Les Jeopardy de Brillar. Hang on one second while I find there he goes. I got it. Just took me a while. I had a lot of messages today. So, Mr. Rayo, this is another one of those top 10 TV show debuts. For 8 out of 10 within 3 years of TV show debuts, and you get to pick one of the doors that Mrs. Bundy is standing in front of tonight.
Not Mrs. Bundy,
Mrs.
please.
Bundy, yes. Okay, so let's start with Get Smart.
Dun, 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 dun. Get Smart actually, I think, started in black and white.
Yeah,
which means
I believe
that,
so.
And if that be the case, then it must have been around 1964. I'll say 64 for the debut of Get Smart.
Did Don Adams win multiple Emmys for Get Smart? Do you remember? For some reason, I have it in my mind that he did.
I do remember when he did win an Emmy. I don't know if it was multiple Emmys, but certainly it was a very funny show, and I wish it was accessible in syndication again. It seems like a lot of the local stations like MeTV and Nick at Night and these stations, TV Land, they don't show Get Smart, at least not anymore. But I'd love to see it again.
Well, it'll turn up somewhere. I Spy.
So, wait a minute, but what year was Get Smart?
Oh,
I said 64.
65. So you're
65.
You're right. You're within the margin of error. I Spy.
I Spy. I'll say 1967.
Within the margin of error, 1965. Ironside.
Okay.
With the great Raymond Burr.
Well, let's see. Perry Mason came to an end in the 65-66 television season. I'm not sure whether or not it was 60. It was late 66 or 67 when Ironside began. I'll say 1967.
And 1967 is the correct answer.
Yes.
Mission Impossibile, as my grandmother used to call it.
Mission Impossible was the show that replaced the long-running TV game show What's My Line, which ended its 17-and-a-half-year run in September of 1967. So I do believe that September of 1967 is when Mission Impossible was
Mission Impossibile.
I don't do French very well. Yes.
My grandmother didn't speak a word of English, not a word of English. She loved Mission Impossible. That was one of her favorite shows. And she also liked Perry Mason. She watched the reruns on Channel 11, and it was referred to that as La Maison.
Yes.
And I
Good morning, Mr. Phipps.
I must have inherited her love of Perry Mason because I love it too. So I'm sorry.
Good morning, Mr. Phipps. Wait a minute. Hold on. Good morning, Mr. Phipps.
Mr. Phelps.
Colonel Dashkai, the man most able to keep peace with his country's neighbor to the south, Pakachu.
Yes.
He was recently captured by a small group of fanatics led by Voldor Bratkin, and now he is in a fortress outside of Plisgard. Your mission, Jim, should you decide to accept it, is to rescue Dashka from Plisgard without causing any concern in either Pakachu or Buchek.
Yeah. Mission Impossible.
Of course, if you or any of your MI force be captured or killed, the secretary will disavow any knowledge of your action. Good luck, Jim.
What was the year? Did you say the year?
I told you, September of 67.
66.
66?
That's what he has, 66. No. Well, either way, you're within the margin of error. So let's move on to car 54. Where are you?
Oh, that was, I think, like 1959, I'll say.
Within the margin of error, 61. Emergency.
19. Well, I got to remember 1970. I'll say 1970. Well, it was either 72 or 73. I'll say 72.
And then 72 is the correct answer. The Mod Squad.
The Mod Squad, 1960. It's got to be in the 60s. 1968.
On the nose, 1968. The Streets of San Francisco.
1970. Hold on. I'll say 19. See, that was like, it was like almost a crossover with Marcus Welby. I'll say 1971.
1972. Hawaii 5-0 with Jack Lord.
67.
68. And I abhorred the remake, by the way. And yes. The last one on the list is Adam 12. One Adam 12.
One Adam 12.
We have a disabled vehicle on the Kosciuszko Bridge. Or is it the Kosciuszko Bridge?
Oh, God. Don't get me started. 1960, I'll say 69.
1968. So you did very well. So, Joe, let's let you pick a door, and it's, of course, a door that Mrs. Bundy is standing in front of us. Is it door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3? She's looking at you right now, Joe, waiting for your answer. There she is, Mrs. Bundy.
Get away, Mrs. Bundy. Get away, Mrs. Bundy. Get away.
Okay, will make Mrs. Bundy go away.
What happened to Carol Merrill? Or she's off tonight?
Okay, Carol, there she is. There's our Carol. She'll come up on the screen in a moment because we're on the delay, but she is there. There's Carol.
Thank you.
But she's got she's got that silver tea set from the Michael C. Fina Company, though.
Fina Company. How about I'll go with what Craig Carlberg says, and I'm going to go with door number 2 tonight.
Door number 2, which if you had picked door number 3, you would have gotten a video of every curtain Carol Merrill opened on the entire run of Let's Make a Deal.
Good Lord. We're talking about like 8,000 openings, probably.
Yes. Now you took door number
2.
Let's tell you what's behind door number 1, which is an 8x10 glossy swimsuit picture of Carol Merrill circa 1972.
Really? You have that picture?
Oh, I don't
Andy?
have it. I don't have it.
All right.
I don't know if there is one.
Right.
I just don't have it.
All right.
But you picked door number 2, so that means you get a current 8x10 glossy swimsuit picture of Carol Merrill, who's we love you, Carol. Don't get yes. A lot of good memories from watching the show. So we're just having a little bit of fun.
All right.
All right.
And the reason why I started laughing at the Kosciuszko Bridge, I told you this story. I was listening on a 2-meter repeater. I have one of these scanners behind me, and when I was on Long Island, I listened to the Limark Radio Club, and these people on Limark had these 2-meter repeaters, and in lieu of, and this was before they became so ubiquitous, before we had cell phones and smartphones, these people on Limark would report accidents on the various roadways, and then they would patch in to the local police precincts or the local state trooper offices to tell them about the accident. And one night, there was this major accident on the Kosciuszko Bridge, and so you hear one of the members going, dee, 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 and you hear the woman on the other end say, yeah, New York City Police Department. He says, I like to report an accident about 1,000 yards north of the intersection of the entrance to the Kosciuszko Bridge, and it's causing lots of problems and blah, 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 blah. And right in the middle of his explanation, the operator says, hold on now. He says, how do you spell Kosciuszko?
By the way, believe it or not, Kosciuszko or Kosciuszko, he's was very much part of the Revolutionary War. Thaddeus Kosciuszko, and he was.
In fact, there's another bridge. There's another bridge. I think you've been over it.
I've been over. Yeah, there's another. Yeah, there's one in upstate New York on the Northway.
Right.
Go up north of Albany. He was a Polish military man, and he was a Polish army officer and statesman who gained fame for both his role in the American Revolutionary War and in the leadership of a national insurrection in his own homeland. So he was he was quite the man. So
yes, he was.
I mean, anybody who's lived in New York at one point or another has probably driven across the Kosciuszko Bridge, which, by the way, is the old bridge is gone. They redid the bridge. It's nice, and you no longer have the fear of having the bridge collapse underneath you as you drive across it with all the potholes. But yeah, there's one on the Northway too. So okay, so I guess we covered it all tonight. Yes, Keith James, yes. Pulaski and Kosciuszko, big up in the Chicago area. There's Pulaski's all over the place. Upstate New York. There's one in Virginia on the way down. There's I think there are a couple of counties also here and there. So that's another popular one. Maybe on another day I'll do a little search and we can get the history of Mr. Pulaski or Pulaski, depending on who you ask on how to pronounce it. Okay. So Joseph Sindrich just walked in and asked on the chat board for wind information for northern Westchester as the storm passes. That's a question for you, Mr. Rayo.
I think, honestly, it will be looking at winds of something like maybe 5 to 15 sustained with some occasional gusts at 20 or 25. If you really want to see gusty winds, my suggestion is to go down either to the Sound Shore or especially so to Long Island or coastal New Jersey. The further inland you go, the less likely, I think, that we're going to be seeing any significant or substantial wind problem from Elsa as she passes by Thursday night, Friday morning.
All right, let's wrap it up here. Thanks everybody for being here tonight. First time we've had over 100 viewers during the show, which is always a good thing, and 72 likes, which is nice too. So see you tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern Time as Elsa makes its final approach, and we have our final show of the work week. So good night, everybody.
Nighty night.